This is episode 14 on wisdom, choosing wisely. We're on our 31-day journey through the book of Proverbs, and today is Proverbs Chapter 16. We're going to highlight wisdom for our motives, wisdom for our goals and dreams. Again, he comes back to the idea of wisdom on the topic of pride, and then also wisdom for leadership. Like, how can we be good leaders that are walking wisely and making wise choices in our leadership abilities? As we read verse 2, 27 and 28 in chapter 16, think about motives. All a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord. In 27 and 28, he says, a scoundrel plots evil, and on their lips it is like a scorching fire. A perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. Like, we do what feels right to us, and we try to justify it. And sometimes we can do a good thing, even though it is the right thing, a good thing. The motives can be wrong. And if I'm helping someone in need, but my motive is to be recognized, then I may be doing a good thing, but I may not be doing it with a pure heart. And he's checking our motives, that God weighs out our motives. And if we listen to him, he will help us realign our motives to where what we're doing, it will be the right thing, and doing it in a right way, making sure that we have the right heart, checking our motives of the reasons why we are doing what we're doing. And in verse 27 and 28, he says a person who has wicked and mean motives will stir up conflict. They're going to hurt people with their words. And a person with wrong motives and a corrupt heart will start fights, and they will stir up drama. A lot of the things that are hurting people and stirring up drama, it's coming from a bad motive in their heart. And if we can check our motives and realign them to God, we can start walking in wisdom, even in the things that we do, say, behave, choices we make, and the motives that we have. I see this theme of goals and dreams in verse 3, 9, and 20. He says in verse 3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. And in verse 9, he says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. And verse 20, he says, whoever gives heed to instruction prospers, and blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord. That we see that these goals and dreams that we have, that if we bring our goals and dreams to the Lord, that he will give us the steps in how to get there, that we can make plans, we can have dreams and goals, but again, it is God who gives us the steps on how are we going to get there. He will give us the plan and create the pathway to make the goals and dreams happen through steps. He says in verse 20 that if we listen and apply the instruction that he is giving us, that we will prosper, and blessings will always flow when we trust in God and the people that he is sending in our life to help us. In verses 5, 18, and 19, we see this theme of pride again. And he's giving us wisdom about pride and our ideas about pride. In verse 5, he says, the Lord detests all the proud of heart, and be sure of this, they will not go unpunished. And in verses 18 and 19, he says, pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. And better to be lowly in spirit along with the oppressed than to share plunder with the proud. Again, he's giving us wisdom that God detests pride, and arrogance turns God's stomach, that he will bring correction to the arrogant, and that pride will be judged. Pride will bring a person to ruin, like it will destroy your life eventually. And the Message actually translates it like this. He says, the bigger the ego is, the harder the fall. The wisdom of the idea of pride is that it is better for us to live with the oppressed, the poor, than to have pride and live a successful and a prosperous life. In verses 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15, he uses the position of a king to exercise this concept of wisdom in the area of leadership. Like if you're in a leadership role, a business role, a CEO, an employer, someone who is in managing people, he gives us wisdom on the topic of leadership. He says in verse 10, the lips of the king speaks as an oracle, and his mouth does not betray justice. In verse 12, he says, kings detest wrongdoing, for the throne is established through righteousness. In verse 13, kings take pleasure in honest lips, and they value the one who speaks what is right. Verse 14, a king's wrath is a messenger of death, but the wise will appease it. Verse 15, when a king's face brightens, it means life, and his favor is like a cloud in spring. He's saying that good leaders choose their words carefully, that they will speak what is right, words that bring justice, reconciliation, healing. They don't speak in ways that divide people or tear them down or even manipulate, that their words motivate and inspire people to do what is right. Good leaders will inspire people to grow, that they will be life-producing, that they will evaluate the gifts and the abilities within people. They will help them correct what may be wrong and help them guide them through a process of really allowing their gifts and ability to surface to the top. That good leaders know how to motivate people and inspire them, and it will produce life within them. I pray today that you glean the wisdom from chapter 16, that God would check our motives, realign our hearts with His, that we will have good intentions and good motives for the decisions and choices that we're making, the goals and dreams that we have, that God will give us the steps as we commit our way to Him, the steps to reaching our goals, that we will keep pride out of our life. I pray that we are inspired to lead well, that we'll lead with wisdom, that many of us are leading our families, we're leading our homes, our spouses, that we're leading our children, that we're leading in our communities, in our churches, and we're leading in our businesses, leading our friends. And I pray that we can lead them to Christ, that we can lead them to be inspired to live out their life purpose, and that we'll come alongside the people in our life and lead them in a wise way.